Mark because he's my doctor, and he's not charging me today. He's not my therapist. Mark is my psychopharmacologist, and I can't stress how important it is to get the right cocktail. You can't just throw out those generic drugs, and without him, I would not be standing on this floor. I'd be maybe lying on it, but I wouldn't be standing. Mark studied cardiology, neurology, and then became a psychiatrist, and has been a consultant psychiatrist since 1990, and then a consultant psychiatrist at the Priory since 1993, and now he just works everywhere. Everywhere you can go. So basically, he's going to talk for a little while and then answer questions. But this is the kind of state-of-the-art psychiatrist who knows what's cutting edge, he knows about neuroscience, and he really, really knows about drugs. So here's my drug dealer, Dr. Mark Collins.
I suspect we are on the sort of brink of a further revolution in psychiatry. Where we get to depression as an endpoint is something that we can talk about, but the endpoint of that illness is it's an illness of the brain. We know now much, much more about the imbalance in brain between different areas, about the chemical imbalances. It's not all quite so straightforward as you've got too little serotonin and take some Prozac and you'll be fine, but chemical imbalance is certainly part of the picture. But what actually is the overwhelming sort of feature of depression for me as a practicing doctor is how it's the only illness, pretty much, that takes over the bit of you that you normally would use to deal with an illness. You know, if I had cancer, if I had multiple sclerosis, whatever it was, my sense of self, me, you know, would be there to deal with the illness. And I deal with it however badly. My wife says I just ignore things, but yeah, I would deal with it as Dr. Mark Collins. Depression takes that over. Depression invades one's self, and it sets up a whole spinning cycle of negativity that fuels itself. It's the only illness that takes over the self, and it's one of the few illnesses that the more you have it, the more you will have it. And I'm sure if people here have experienced depression, I would guess that this is something that people can identify with. It saddens me that the sort of pull your socks up approach is presented as if it's some very, you know, marvellous revelation that the person concerned hadn't thought of as a strategy. Gosh, you know, what a great idea. But as anyone who's suffered from depression will know, the worst person for berating self, for having failed to pull socks up, etc., is the sufferer. It takes over self-esteem, it takes over self-worth, it just puts a pair of negative spectacles on every experience of life. We all rely on some kind of positive feedback loop to keep us going. It doesn't have to be ecstatic unless you know, addiction is your bag. It can just be that feedback loop. I do this and I feel something that is positive back. It doesn't have to be great, as I say. And just imagine